Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Scottsdale Big Book Study, where we will study the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Today's date is Saturday, the 9th of December, 2023. My name is Maria F., and I'm a recovered compulsive overeater from County Dublin in Ireland, and I will be your host for today's study. Our co-host today is Johan N., and Nancy Jane Geneva will be doing our Q&A. If you have any questions during the meeting, please contact either myself or any of the co-hosts, and you can do this by private message in the chat function. Just please note that the speaker today, Harlan G., will be recorded for the duration of the study. However, the question and answer section which follows, that will not be recorded. And we ask that if you please make sure to keep your microphone on mute at all times during today's study, and also please disconnect your camera if you're exercising or eating, or if you need to step away from the camera at all, please just do disconnect it. We've posted a link to the previous week's recordings, and for the 7th edition, we've posted that in the chat function. We will disable the chat function now until 10 minutes before the start of the Q&A, where we will enable it again. So we're now going to go over to Harlan G. in Scottsdale, Arizona. Good morning to you, Harlan.
Good morning, Maria. Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here, and just so you can eat your hearts out. It's going to be about 70 degrees here today in Scottsdale, so you can all start retching and whatever you need to do, but that's up to you. In the summertime, it's your time to gloat, and in the wintertime, this is my time to gloat. So it's going to be about 70 degrees here today. We are going to be talking about the fellowship today, and we're going to be talking about some different things today. We're going to start on page 160, the very practical approach. But before we get to page 160, the very practical approach to his problems, we're going to talk about some things that we have been talking about over the last couple of weeks. And the fact of the matter is, the chapter that we're in, the title is A Vision for You. What is the purpose of this chapter? Well, the purpose of this chapter is not just to give you a good glimpse into the history of AA, but it is also to answer a question that we all have. And the question is, what will my life look like? What will my life be like when I'm not eating compulsively any longer? I have been very blessed. I have very dear friends. I started kindergarten in Chicago. I'm born and raised on the north side of Chicago. And I started kindergarten on September the 7th, 1959. And on September the 7th, 1959, I met some boys. And to this day, in 2023, we are still in touch and still friends today. And I have many, many friends. I have been very blessed throughout my life to have long-standing friends. When I moved to Arizona, I found people from within the fellowship of OA that I became friendly with as well. So I have old friends and I have new friends from here in Arizona. I've been a very blessed man when it comes to friendships and relationships. I do not have family. I don't have aunts or uncles or cousins or nieces or nephews and stuff. I don't have parents or grandparents, aunts or uncles or anything like that. And I really didn't have it even as a child. I had my parents, but that was about it. I'm an only child. I never had brothers and sisters. I never had any of that stuff. And so I learned early on to make do with what I did have. And it's funny, when I was a little boy, I grew up in a very Jewish neighborhood in Chicago, and lots of really big families, 3, 4, 7, 10 kids, whatever that was, 5 kids, whatever the case was. And they were always jealous of me because I didn't have brothers and sisters, and I was always jealous of them because they did. It seemed to me that they had built-in playmates and built-in companions that I did not have, and they would really be jealous of me because I didn't have to share things with my siblings like they did. And so it's interesting how human nature is always looking for what's different. You know, we're always looking for, if I have a lot of siblings, I want none. If I have none, I want a lot. You know, it's just funny that way. But anyway, I am very, very lucky to have these long-standing friends. And we talk all the time. It isn't like we know each other, but we keep up on Facebook. No, it's much closer than that. But here's the point that I'm trying to make. Those friends from my old neighborhood in Chicago, I cannot share with them things that I can share with you. Now, some of you, as I look at your little Hollywood Square pictures or whatever it is I'm looking at here, some of you I know, and most of you I don't know. Now, I have actually broken bread with some of you. Some of you have been here to Scottsdale, or I have visited you, or we have done conventions together, and I'm sincerely hoping that you will come to the OA birthday in Los Angeles, California, January the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th. I'm sincerely hoping that you will come there. And Maria and I and Nancy, we were talking before the meeting about the power of conventions and how much we love them and how much we look forward to them. Any of you right now here that have been in program for any length of time, I can have a conversation with you that is deeper and more meaningful, more personal, and more revealing than I can with people that I have known all of my life. All of my life. I have no way of making them understand, not you, but them, the ones that I knew from the neighborhood. I can't make them understand what makes me tick. They have a sense that I'm smart now and I used to be stupid because I don't eat like I used to eat. I don't weigh what I used to weigh. And so I don't have the consequences that I used to have. And in their mind, what happened was I finally got smart. I finally got disciplined. I finally got willpower. You understand what it is to have the disease, and you understand what it takes to recover from the disease. And so for you to have this understanding is quite magical for me. And I call it, and it is called, the language of the heart. It is indeed the language of the heart. And so if you speak and you understand the language of the heart, then we can be deeper, faster than anybody that I could meet on the outside. It is just a magical thing to be a part of this fellowship because we can understand and speak this language of the heart that is so life-giving, so special, so amazing that I would not want to be without it at any time in my life. You know, we read, some of us read the acceptance chapter, the doctor, addict, alcoholic, and there's the acceptance on page 417, yeah. And we read, he thought that being an alcoholic was the worst thing that could have happened to him. Now he finds out it's the best thing that could have happened to him. Well, I'm not going to go in that far and saying that being a compulsive overeater is the best thing that ever happened to me, but I'm pretty close because being a compulsive overeater puts me in touch with you. It puts me in touch with the men and the women of this program. I could not want for a more joyous life. I have traveled this country. When I was a little boy, I was very jealous of people who went on airplanes and they went on vacations because my dad was very poor. He was a peddler. He never really made a living. Going on an airplane was an unheard of kind of thing when I was a kid. And now I have been on airplanes so much, I'm sick of it. I'm really sick of it. And I don't look forward to it really at all. You know, you're jammed in there like a bunch of sardines, and it's really not the kind of pleasant experience that, you know, you would think. If you're lucky enough to be able to fly first class, then it becomes a little bit more easy, a little more enjoyable, but it's still between, getting through security and all this other stuff, which you have to do whether you're first class or you're not, it's a pain in the butt. It really is just a pain in the butt. But where I was going with this is God has shown me oceans, and I've been everywhere from Alaska to Israel. I've been everywhere from Florida to Seattle, from Seattle to Boston, from Boston to San Diego, and most of the points in between. There are very few major areas in this country that I have not been to. Very, very few of them that I have not been to. So today, I'm at the end of my traveling. I still go, different things. Now, if I do get invited to certain places, I'll go because I want to go there. But by and large, when I get invited to travel to do Big Book, I don't do it as much anymore because I'm getting old. I'm getting beaten down. And I think to a large extent, as far as running around doing Big Book, it's time for me and to sort of get on the sideline. And it really is time for some of the younger people who are going to be the circuit speakers of tomorrow, for them to get out there. And I still like to go to Europe. I've never been to Europe. I bought my tickets to Ireland twice. Twice I bought my tickets to Ireland, and I have a pen in my desk here. This is a cross pen, which I love. I love a cross pen. But anyway, here's my pen, and it says here, Dublin, September 20-something, 2019. I never was there. I never made it. The plane broke, and I couldn't get to Dublin until Sunday night after the retreat would have been over. And so Laurie did it by himself, which is, I'd rather do it by myself than, do it with somebody else. And so would he. So it kind of worked out nice for him. But the bottom line is that I bought my tickets to Ireland twice, never been there. I got invited to Italy. I fell down, had a hematoma, hit my head, loosened my teeth, injured my hand. I was pretty sick there, and the doctor just said, no chance you're going to Italy. So I've actually been invited to Europe 3 times, and I have been there no times. So that's just a little shtuck, God letting me know, hey, you know what? You're still human, and that's just the way it's going to be. So if I have to live without that, and I have to live without, Europe, or I have to live without that stuff, then that's just the way it's going to be. But anyway, the reason I'm going on and on about that is to make this point, not about my lack of travel or travel. The people in here are the people that I can turn to when my finances are not great, when my romances are not great, when life is up or down. I have a place to go where there are people that can hear me, and not only hear me, but understand this very, very special language of the heart. I have a place for others to go. And when you call me, it gets me out of myself. And that is a reward. That is a gift that I cannot even describe to you how wonderful it is to be able to take respite from the chatter in my head. And for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever that may be, I'm actually thinking about someone else beside myself. That is a gift I cannot even begin to tell you. And so when I hear you at Vision, or I hear you on the line, or I hear what you're saying on our Scottsdale meetings, it means something to me that just the normal relationship between people cannot. My relationship with some of my friends that I knew from kindergarten, they're beautiful relationships. I wouldn't trade them for bars of gold, but I cannot go to them and say, I'm really scared. I'm really angry. I'm really sad. I'm really hurting. You just can't lay that on them. They just don't get it. They really just don't understand why you're so sad. They don't understand what you're talking about. They just can't. It's like trying to expect a goldfish to be able to do algebra. It's just not something that's going to happen. And so I have to keep my expectations with them different than my expectations in here, that you guys can speak and understand the language of the heart. All right, let's go to the bottom of page 160. And we have been talking about the meetings of the Oxford group in Akron. And we have been talking about T. Henry and Clarice Williams, and we've been talking about the formation of meetings in the fellowship. We're on page 160. The very practical approach is at the bottom of the page at 160. The very practical approach to his problems, the absence of intolerance of any kind, and the informality, the genuine democracy, the uncanny understanding which these people had were irresistible. And these are ideals that we need to strive for. Let's put our judgment aside when we're here. Let's put our intolerance aside when we're here. We shouldn't have it at all. But especially when we're in here. We are all broken, sick people. We are not bad people trying to get good. We are sick people trying to get well. And this is a very important distinction. And when people are in here, we have to be kind and tolerant and practice genuine democracy. The uncanny understanding which these people had were irresistible, and I've already talked about that. You guys are amazing. They know my parents, and they knew this one, and they knew that one, and I knew their parents and their grandparents. You know me better than they ever will. You know me right where I live. You know right where I tick. You know what drives me, and you understand the language of the heart. He and his wife would leave elated by the thought of what they could now do for some stricken acquaintance. And so we're talking about newcomers. And what is the first thing they think about? How they're going to help somebody else, how they're going to bring this to someone else. And his family, they knew they had a host of new friends. It seemed they had known these strangers always. And sometimes when I get into conversations with some of you, I have to remind myself, I may have met you once. I may never have met you in my entire life, but you know me better than my best friends from the old neighborhood. You speak and you understand the language of the heart. There is an instant common denominator between us. And my girlfriend, the lady that I'm involved with, she also is someone who speaks and understands that language of the heart. And it makes me very comfortable. It makes me very glad that she does, because we can have a lot of very deep conversations, and we get to know each other a lot faster because we speak and understand that language of the heart. Okay, they have seen miracles, and one was to come to them. They had visioned the great reality. The great reality is this way of life. And that great reality is in capital letters, because that's God-given and that's God. Their loving and all-powerful creator, capital letters, again, capitalized words, because he's talking about God. And the great reality, they had visioned this great reality. We're talking about the fellowship of OA. We're talking about the fellowship of AA. We're talking about that because this is the great reality, that there is a place to go, that there is a fellowship where for generations and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, there was nowhere to go. If you had this, you had to keep it to yourself, and you died in solitude. There was nobody to discuss this with. There was nobody to talk about this with. You didn't dare say a word. People would lock you up. They would think you were insane. They would think you were absolutely crazy. But now we have a place to go where we can be open about what goes on there. Now, when we say this house, we're talking about the Oxford group meetings at T. Henry and Clarice Williams houses. Now, this house will hardly accommodate its weekly visitors, for they number 60 or 80 as a rule. That's a lot of people. Alcoholics are being attracted from far and near, from surrounding towns. Families drive long distances to be present. A community 30 miles away has 15 fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. This would be Cleveland. Cleveland used to be the biggest city in Ohio, not anymore. Now it's Columbus. Being a large place, we think that someday its fellowship will number many hundreds. And this is again written in 1939. Today, we know that Alcoholics Anonymous is in 170 countries and Overeaters Anonymous is in 60 countries. But Alcoholics Anonymous is in 170 countries. That's a lot of countries. I'm on page 161. But life among Alcoholics Anonymous is more than attending gatherings and visiting hospitals, cleaning up old scrapes, helping to settle family differences, explaining the disinherited son to his irate parents, lending money and securing jobs for each other when justified. These are everyday occurrences. No one is too discredited or has sunk too low to be welcomed cordially. If he means business, if you're just here to audit the class, then obviously that's a whole different situation. That's obviously a whole different ball of wax. Don't sit here and audit the class. Come in here to participate. Come in here to work the steps. So that little caveat there, if he means business, is beautiful. Being wrecked in the same vessel. Social distinctions, petty rivalries, and jealousies, these are laughed out of countenance. Being wrecked in the same vessel, being restored and united under one God, with hearts and minds attuned to the welfare of others. The things which matter so much to some people no longer signify much to them. How could they? I don't sit and obsess about things I used to, the money and the this and the that. I just need to stay abstinent, and God does the rest. God is doing for me on a daily basis what I cannot do for myself, but he will not do what I can do for myself. And what I can do for myself is work the steps, help others, work the steps. It's very, very important. Okay. The things which matter to some people no longer signify much to them. How could they? Under only slightly different conditions, the same thing is taking place in many Eastern cities. In one of these, there is a well-known hospital for the treatment of alcoholic and drug addiction. 6 years ago, one of our number was a patient there. He's talking about Bill Wilson, who is writing this, and he's talking about the Towns Hospital, where he met Dr. William D. Silkworth. William D. Silkworth was the medical director at Towns Hospital, and Bill first went into the hospital in April of 33. The writing of this chapter took place up to April of 39. So the 6 years ago is tremendously accurate, very accurate. Many of us have felt for the first time the presence and power of God within its walls, capital letters. We are greatly indebted to the doctor in attendance there, for he, although it might prejudice his own work, has told us of his belief in ours. And this is a very good testimony to the character of Dr. Silkworth. Dr. Silkworth wasn't making money off of Alcoholics Anonymous, but he attested many times to people that this is the way to go, that this is how you're going to achieve sobriety. We can get you sober, but we can't keep you sober here at the hospital. If you want to stay sober, you're going to have to go into Alcoholics Anonymous. And he was very forthcoming about that. It was wonderful that he was so forthcoming because he endorsed us in that way. Very, very important. He knew his own limitations. He knew that as a medical director in a hospital, he can get you sober, but he cannot keep you sober. There's a big distinction between getting sober and keeping you sober. Every few days, this doctor suggests our approach to one of his patients. That's a lot. Understanding our work, he can do this with an eye to selecting those who are willing and able to recover on a spiritual basis. Many of us, former patients, go there to help. Bill Wilson was a patient there. Hank Parkhurst was a patient there. Fitz Mayo was a patient there. Jimmy Burwell was a patient there. And these guys repaid that. There were others too. They repaid that by going to the town's hospital to talk to people who were, according to what they could see, alcoholics, not your heavy drinkers or your moderate drinkers, but your alcoholics. And so he and he and Ebby, not Ebby so much. Ebby was drunk by the time 1939 came to a close. But he and these other guys, Fitz Mayo, Jimmy Burwell, Hank Parkhurst, and others, they would go to the town's hospital and they would do the best they could to present this to these alcoholics. They would do their very best to present them with the problem and then with the solution. Many of us former patients go there to help. Then in this Eastern city, there are informal meetings such as we have described to you, where you may now see scores of members. So you're talking about 60, 80 members at a crack. There are the same fast friendships. There is the same helpfulness to one another as you find among our Western friends. That's Akron. There's a good bit of travel between East and West, and we foresee a great increase in this helpful interchange. Very, very important, but very self-explanatory. Let's continue. Someday we hope that every alcoholic who journeys will find a fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous in capital letters at his destination. To some extent, this is already true. Some of us are salesmen and go about. Little clusters of 2s and 3s and 5s of us have sprung up in other communities. Though through contact with our 2 larger centers, those of us who travel drop in as often as we can. This practice enables us to lend a hand, at the same time avoiding certain alluring distractions of the road about which any traveling man can inform you. And so these guys needed something else to fill them up. So when they would travel about, what filled them up? Meetings, fellowship. That's what filled them up. Not, ladies of the evening or bars or drinking or drugging or whatever. Now they go to the meetings and they have the fellowship to fill them up. Much, much more productive, much better in the long run, of course. Thus we grow. I'm at the bottom of 162, almost 163. Thus we grow. And so you can, though you be but one man with this book in your hand, we believe and hope it contains all you need to begin. Very, very important. We know what you're thinking. You are saying to yourself, I'm jittery and alone. I couldn't do that, but you can. You forget that you have now just tapped a source of power much greater than yourself. To duplicate with such backing what we have accomplished is only a matter of willingness, patience, and labor. In other parts of the book, it'll say willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness. But this is willingness, patience, and labor. And your HOW program comes from honest, open, willing. Honest, open, willing. And that's how they got the HOW program. That's how they got the name for the HOW program. Now, we're going to talk here about something that's very historically significant. Let's do the next paragraph. We know of an AA member who was living in a large community. He had lived there but a few weeks when he found that the place probably contained more alcoholics per square mile than any city in the country. This was only a few days ago at this writing, 1939. We're talking about Hank Parkhurst, who lived in Montclair, New Jersey, and found tons of alcoholics there. And Hank Parkhurst knows of a guy who's a psychiatrist, and his name is Dr. Howard. And Dr. Howard got a hold of a multilith. Multilith is mimeograph. If you remember when we were kids, if you're anything like my age, when we were kids, the tests and certain assignments were mimeographed. It had that blue ink and the paper smelled like glue. It smelled like Elmer's glue all, that kind of thing. Well, Dr. Howard took notice of this multilith copy, and he went right to Bill Wilson. Now, the book hadn't been printed yet, but they were making copies of it for people's perusal. And he begged Bill to do a rewrite, which Bill didn't want to do. And the rewrite was because of the fact that Dr. Howard in New Jersey knew that the alcoholic mind is not going to settle for being told what to do. I know that I'm alone here. I know that I'm the only one. I know most of you love being told what to do. But the real truth of the matter is most addicts are rebels by their nature. We are immature, sensitive, perfectionistic rebels. And as rebels, we don't like being told what to do. And so when people try to tell us what to do, we will rebel. And Bill Wilson had written a book where he says, do this, don't do that, say this, don't, that kind of thing. And that's called the imperative. Imperative. You do this, you do that, you say this, you say that. Don't go here, go there, don't pass go, don't collect $200. Well, Dr. Howard convinced Bill to do a rewrite because the book needs to be in the declarative, not the imperative. The declarative is, these are the steps we took. These are the things we found. This is our experience as long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. So you have a book today that, except for 2 employers and for the working with others chapter, you have a book that is written in the declarative rather than in the imperative. Because this guy, Dr. Howard, he knew that the alcoholic mind is not going to sit still for being told what to do. And in the original verbiage of the book, it says things like, by this time in the book, if you haven't accepted what we have, either reread the book or simply throw it away. Just very off the wall kind of stuff like that. And Dr. Howard, he told Bill Wilson, you need to do a rewrite. You need to get that stuff out of there. And Bill did. Bill relented and he did it. And thank God he did, because if the book were in the imperative, I don't know how many of us would still be around. How many of us like being told exactly what to do? I don't think you do, and I know I sure as hell don't. The authorities were much concerned. He got in touch with a prominent psychiatrist who had undertaken certain responsibilities for the mental health of the community. The doctor proved to be able and exceedingly anxious to adopt any workable method of handling the situation. So he inquired, what did our friend have on the ball? In other words, what does he know? Our friend proceeded to tell him, and with such good effect that the doctor agreed to a test among his patients and certain other alcoholics. From a clinic which he attends, arrangements were also made with the chief psychiatrist of a large public hospital, this would be Bellevue, to select still others from the stream of misery which flows throughout that institution, and that is Dr. Russell Bladesdell. Dr. Russell Bladesdell, Blaisdell, Blaisdell. And this is the psychiatrist at Bellevue in New York that he is talking about, Dr. Russell Bladesdell. Some of our fellow worker will soon have friends. Soon our fellow worker will soon have friends galore. So our fellow worker. I knew I was making a mistake. I just didn't know which. Okay, so our fellow worker, that's better. Will soon have friends galore, and they're promising that to us too. I have wonderful friends out of OA, but I have wonderful, wonderful friends in OA. Some of them may sink and perhaps never get up. But if our experience is a criterion, more than half of those approached will become fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. When a few men in this city have found themselves, I'm at the top of 164, when they have found themselves and have discovered the joy of helping others to face life again, there will be no stopping until everyone in that town has had his opportunity to recover if he can and will. So our primary purpose is to spread this word. And that is why I get questions all the time. Where in the big book does it say work the steps quickly? Where in the big book does it say this? Where in the big book does it say I can't do 87 reading assignments and writing assignments and take 20 years to work the steps? It doesn't. But what it gives you is a very clear picture that these guys got busy. They did not let grass grow under their feet. I reminded you, I'll remind you again of Dr. Bob. Now, if Dr. Bob got sober on June the 10th, which he didn't, he got sober on June 17th, but okay. If he got sober on June the 10th and June the 26th, 16 days after he got sober, he was trying to sponsor Bill Dotson, and he did. Now, let me ask you a question. You don't have to put your hands up if you don't want to. How many of you that are listening to the sound of my voice right now were sponsoring 16 days after you first put down the food? I guarantee you not many, because unless you're mine. But the bottom, yeah, you definitely were, because you're one of mine. But the definite scenario is pictured in this book. You are to get busy and get busy now, not in a month, not in 2 months, not in 3 months. You get busy as quickly as you can, and you start working with other people. It says on page 89, nothing ensures immunity from drinking like intensive work with other alcoholics. So if this is what is going to give me immunity, I want this promise. And in order for this promise to come true, I have to be a sponsor. What do I need to be a sponsor? Well, it says having had a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps. What do I need to have a spiritual awakening? Well, I need abstinence and I need to work the steps. And that means andale, schnell, get busy. There are only several steps that have written assignments to them. They are 4, 8, and sometimes 9. That's it. There are no written assignments for 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, or 12. None whatsoever. So if somebody is telling you that there's all these written assignments and you have to read other books and you have to go read outside books, you tell them Harlan says, I don't think so. Can we talk about this? Because Harlan says, I don't think so. So the bottom line is the only written assignments are step 4, 8, and sometimes 9. That's it. There's no writing in 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, and 12. None whatsoever. Top of 164. Still you may say, but I will not have the benefit of contact with you who write this book. We cannot be sure. God will determine that. So you must remember that your real reliance is upon him. Him is capitalized. He's talking about God. He will show you how to create the fellowship you crave. And in showing you how to create the fellowship that you crave, your life will change forever. Your life will change forever. There are 3 things that are going to happen. You'll get right with God. You'll get right with yourself. and you'll get right with your fellow human being. And when you can really boil the meat from the bone, there are two permanent relationships in a life, only two. I don't care if you've been married 100 years, you're not with that person 24/7. I'm sorry, you're just not. But there are two permanent relationships in a life: the relationship you have with God and the relationship you have with self. And when you work this program, those relationships will improve exponentially. It will improve a lot. So he is telling you how to create the fellowship you crave. How do you do that? Well, you could start a meeting. Well, you can go to different meetings. If you're going to meetings and you're not finding people there, go to different meetings. If you want the same, you have to do the same. If you want different, you have to do different. And if you're not getting the results you want, be prepared to do different. Be prepared to do different. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. So there is an admission that we only know a little. There's an admission that we may not have all the answers for everything, but we'll certainly give it the college try. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. I learn things about myself every day in this program. I didn't know how selfish I was. I didn't know how angry I was. I didn't know how scared I was. I didn't know how dishonest I was until I came into these rooms. And in coming into these rooms, I learned so much about myself that it helps me every single day. I don't need to know about you. I just need to know about me. I don't want to sit here and take your inventory. What a waste of time that is. But I learned things about me that are very important. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. And that means in your 11th step, which is your morning meditation, do that. I ask God, how can I find you so I can help the next person? The answers will come if your own house is in order. Now, this is a very important sentence. The answers will come if your own house is in order. And I've heard this for many years. People come in here and they complain, oh, these promises, they don't come true for me. They come true for everybody else. Did you do the work? My friend in New Jersey, South Jersey, says, I'm very sorry you got no results from the work you didn't do. I'm very sorry you got no results from the work you didn't do. And what that means is if you don't do this work, don't bitch, moan, and complain to me about how the program doesn't work and this and that. The truth of the matter is, if you do the work, you recover very beautifully. And if you don't do the work, you won't recover very beautifully. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. Let's stop right there. In order for you to know something, you must learn it. And in order to learn it, in our case here, you have to do it. There is no chapter into figuring this out. There is no chapter into thinking. There is no chapter into philosophizing. There is no chapter into dropping out of here. The chapter is into action. Into action. This is not a program for people who need it. This is not a program for people who want it. This is a program for people who do it. And if you do it and you do this program, you have something to transmit. You have something. If you don't do this program, if all you're doing is going to meetings and all you're doing is kind of auditing the class, if you don't know what that means, you're sitting in a college class, you're just kind of observing. You're just kind of observing. You're not going to get a grade. You're not going to even get a pass fail. You're just going to get an audit as a grade that you audited the class. But you have to be here. You have to be a participant. And if you are a participant in this way of life, you will have something life-giving to give someone else. There are several men here that are in this meeting right now. And I have sponsored these people. They in turn are sponsoring others, who in turn are sponsoring others, who in turn are sponsoring others. So there is a chain effect. There is a ripple effect. And it is one of the greatest joys of my life is to see myself or to see someone else coming in here broken and morbidly obese, not able to put the food down for more than a very short period of time, someone who is full of self-loathing, someone who is full of doubt, fear, anger, jealousies, restless, irritable, discontent, to bloom, to blossom into a recovering human being. What could be more precious in God's eyes? Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. We cannot be of maximum service to anyone when we're in the food and we're not in recovery. Now, Maria is the host today. I'm not knocking that. That's great. And we have Sue L. And without her, we don't have there is no big book study. And without Nancy J., there's no big book study. And I don't see Lauren N. much anymore, but Lauren N. is another person and Johan. And we have a lot of people behind the scenes, Maria F. Without these people, there's others too that I can't think of names right now. I'm trying to think of what I'm going to say, and it's just hard. But we wouldn't have a meeting. We wouldn't be able to be here this morning. You listen to me. You're looking at me. You're watching me. I'm the tip of the iceberg. If we didn't have a treasurer that paid for the Zoom room, if we didn't have hosts, moderators, people to do the parking lot, people that if we didn't have that, there is no meeting. But that service alone, and I don't want to knock this, not knocking these people, they're wonderful. Without sponsorship, that service alone will not keep me out of the food. And that's where I'm going with this. Yes, Sue and Maria and Nancy and Johan and Lauren, and without that, we have no meeting. But without sponsorship, we have nothing in the way of recovery. Clancy Imisland is one of my heroes. I've told you that hundreds of times. Clancy has passed away. Clancy is no longer with us. But Clancy taught me something. I was walking. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm walking. I can picture where I heard it right now. It's right by my house. He said, we do not learn this program by absorbing spiritual information. We learn this program by transmitting spiritual information. In other words, we are not in a classroom. We are not learning this program like we learn algebra or history or science or English or math, whatever it is. We learn by doing and transmitting. We see it, we do it, we teach it, we see it. We come to the meetings. We see certain people have something about them that we want. They are the people that are alive. They are the people that are doing this program. We ask them to sponsor us, and they do. And so we see it. Then we start to do it. Clancy also teaches us that when one alcoholic talks to a second alcoholic, so that the second alcoholic's feelings of differences and reluctance begin to fade. And he begins taking action after action after action that he does not yet believe in. This is the point where recovery is taking place. You have to start taking action after action after action. So you see one, you do it, now you teach it. You will never learn as much about yourself until you start sponsoring. I get this all the time in questions. How do I keep my program fresh? How do I keep my program green? How do I keep from getting bored? How do I keep from the monotony of this? Sponsor other people. And when you sponsor, trust me, they will keep you hopping. They will keep you fresh. They will keep you green. I learn more from the men I sponsor than I ever learned in any book, at any college, at any grammar school, at any high school that I've ever attended. Yes, I have a college degree. So the men that I sponsor are my professors. Why would you want to deny yourself that? Are you mad? Why would you want to deny yourself that? The people that I sponsor are reflecting me back to me, and I learn who I am. And that's a lot to know in this one lifetime that we have here on earth. We're here for such a very short period of time. And when I die, there's going to be a tombstone, and it's going to say Harlan Grabowski, 1954 dash whatever. I hope it doesn't say 2023 or 2024. At least give me some time. But what I'm striving for is maximize the dash. The dash is where your life is won or lost. Did you live while you were here? We're all born and we're all going to die. I don't care how recovered you are, you're going to die. I don't care how, but it's not the point of are you going to die or not? It's the point of, did you live while you were here? Did you live while you were here? That's how this works. It starts to maximize what you're about. See this book, and I can't pick it up because I want to mark my place here. The book Alcoholics Anonymous is not a book about how to stop eating. It's a book about how to live your life. The eating is the first half of the first step. That's it. It's a book about how to live your life. And the better you study this by teaching it to others, the better you do this, and the more of it you do, the better the dash between the day you were born and the day you go to God. Maximize the dash. And how do I maximize the dash? By working this program and teaching this program, to be part of the outstretched hand that is Overeaters Anonymous to those who urgently seek it. For this I am responsible. Let's continue. We're going to finish the book, and next week we're going to roll over and start over again. Okay. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. That's obvious. See to it that your relationship with Him is right. Him is God. And great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Notice that great fact is capitalized because this is your God experience. This is your spiritual awakening. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God, steps 1 through 3. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows, steps 4 through 7. Clear away the wreckage of your past, steps 8 and 9. Give freely of what you find, steps 10 through 12, and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit. This is the fellowship of the Spirit. There is the spirit of the fellowship and the fellowship of the Spirit. The fellowship of the Spirit is the people that comprise OA. And the spirit of the fellowship is whatever it is you pray to as a higher power, whether it's a religious God, whether it's just a power greater than yourself. That's all that's necessary. Can you recover if you're atheist? Yes. Can you recover if you're agnostic? Yes. Can you recover if you're a believer like me? Yes. All that's necessary is a willingness to believe. You don't even have to believe that there is a power greater than yourself. That's all that's required of you to make your beginning. And you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny in capitals. And what we're talking about here is meetings. What we're talking about here is retreats. And what we're talking about that's imminent right away is the birthday of OA. We want you to come and be part of that fellowship that is in Los Angeles on the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th of January. We need you. We want you. Come to the birthday. You will make your God Squad bigger. You will invigorate your program. You will come out of that birthday more recovered than you went in. You will love it. You will have fun. You will laugh. You will cry. You will hear things you need to hear, and you will share things you need to share. oabirthday.com. Could it be easier? oabirthday.com. We will just love on you. We will just love on you. And then the last sentence here is, may God bless you and keep you until then. May God bless you and keep you until then. Now, I am hoping that over the last year, our get-togethers have been helpful for you. Our numbers are a little down from where they were during the summer and the early part of the year, but this is unfortunately eating season for many. We were at 150, 160 people, so hopefully in January we'll bounce back up to those numbers. I hope that we will. But the bottom line is that we have an opportunity here to learn together, to discuss things at length that we don't normally get to discuss at length. This is not a special edition. I have an entire hour here to myself, and we can give background and we can give history and things like that. So what I would like you to do during this week, and this is before we go to questions and answers, there was some talk about going into Dr. Bob's nightmare and going into Dr. Bob's nightmare and finishing it hopefully in a couple of weeks, maybe 2, maybe 3, and going through there and giving you some historical significance of it. Or do you want me to roll it all the way back to the beginning and start over again? So if you could let me know, you don't have to let me know right now. Don't call me, text me. You have my phone number here. I'll jiggle my my mouse here, or you jiggle yours. My phone number is on there. You can text me and let me know. Do you want us to go to Dr. Bob's Nightmare and start the new, the new book, maybe the first of the year? Or do you want me to begin the book again next week? So let's just get a feel. Let me just get a feel for where most of you are. But I'm going to turn this back. But before I do, oabirthday.com, please come and join us in Los